Ladies and gentlemen, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin recently emphasized that the survival of Ukraine is at a critical threshold. This warning was issued by the head of the Pentagon as the U.S. attempts to persuade allies that the country remains committed to standing with Ukraine, even as Washington has essentially run out of funds to continue supplying weapons. According to Reuters, the U.S. House of Representatives, controlled by the Republican Party, has still said no to a bill that would provide an additional $60 billion in aid to Ukraine. In light of this situation, the White House is making every effort to find the funds to support Ukraine. The trip to Germany by the U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is seen as part of this effort. On March 19th, the head of the Pentagon chaired a monthly meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group at the Ramstein Air Base in Germany. Approximately 50 countries that have provided military support to Ukraine also participated. The contents of the meeting have not been disclosed. However, in a press conference afterward, Mr. Austin warned that the survival of Ukraine is in danger. He stated that our allies and partners continue to increase their support. The United States must do the same and indicates differences in the U.S. Congress regarding the provision of additional aid to Ukraine. According to Reuters, fundamentally, the U.S. has run out of funds to continue arming Ukraine. In a press conference in Germany, Secretary Austin did not specify how Washington would support Ukraine if no additional funding was available. Ukrainian officials have stated that the lack of funds has impacted the battlefield, forcing their forces to ration their use in the face of a severe shortage of weapons. President Zelensky, over the past several months, has continuously called on Western allies, especially the U.S., to quickly provide military aid to Ukraine. Consequently, the head of the Ukrainian government has toured several member countries of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and participated in many international forums to fulfill this vital mission. Most recently, at a joint press conference with Prime Minister Edi Rama of Albania after the Southeast Europe-Ukraine Summit at the end of February, President Zelensky attempted to urge partners to increase weapon production and prevent delays in supply. Mr. Galaski proposed the idea that Ukraine will join Southeast European countries in weapons production. Furthermore, Mr. Jenny stated that sending additional air defense weapon packages to Ukraine is the most crucial action the allies of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO, can undertake. Mr. Galeski emphasized that if they have enough air defense systems, they could bring millions of Ukrainians home over the past several months. President Zelensky has also actively lobbied many Western countries to support and provide weapons aid, including trips to Germany, the United States, France, Poland, and the Czech Republic. Sana reported that Israel on March 19th, Mr. Netanyahu stressed that he had made it extremely clear to the U.S. president that Israel is determined to eliminate Hamas forces in Rafah, and that there is no way to do so except by deploying a ground operation. According to Reuters, the two leaders had a phone conversation, and White House National Security Advisor Just Sullivan stated that Washington believes an attack on Rafah would be a mistake and that Israel could achieve its military objectives by other means. Amid concerns about an impending famine in Gaza, White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre said on March 19th that U.S. and Israeli officials will meet in Washington early next week to discuss Israel's military operations in Rafah. Ms. Jean-Pierre announced that President Biden has requested Prime Minister Netanyahu to send a high-level delegation of military intelligence and humanitarian officials to Washington for comprehensive discussions. Washington has initiated a new diplomatic effort to promote a ceasefire in the nearly 6-month-long conflict, aiming to free hostages and provide food aid to prevent famine in Gaza. In a related development, the U.S. State Department's deputy spokesperson, Vedant Patel, stated that Israel has allowed leaders and staff of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, to visit their operations areas, including in Gaza. Mr. Patel emphasized that the free movement of a team of 5 international staff is a crucial part of the humanitarian response, and the U.S. will continue to coordinate with the Israeli government to expedite visa approvals for UN and NGO staff. This call was made after UNRWA and Egypt reported that Israel had denied entry to the head of UNRWA from the Philippines on March 18th. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni declared opposition to Israel's ground offensive in the city of Rafah in southern Gaza Strip. An estimated 1.5 million residents of Gaza have fled the conflict and sought refuge in Rafah, a southern city bordering Egypt, believed to be relatively safe. The Israel Defense Forces, IDF, announced on March 19th the establishment of the Harem Brigade, a new civilian brigade tasked with conducting cross-border operations against Lebanon and Syria amidst escalating tensions due to ongoing fighting in the Gaza Strip. According to the announcement, the Harem Brigade, operating under the direction of the 210th Division, is responsible for responding to the situation along Israel's northern border and will gather intelligence. Colonel Lyron Appelman has been appointed as the commander of the newly established brigade. The Harem Brigade is set to become operational in the coming weeks in the disputed areas of Mao Gaman, also known as Japan Aji, and Mao Dop, also known as the Shabaa Farms. These areas have long been flashpoints of violence due to territorial disputes and are currently under the jurisdiction of the Hermon Brigade, number 810 of the IDF. The new brigade is tasked with specializing in combat in difficult terrain and mountainous areas, regions along the borders of Israel with Lebanon and Syria that have witnessed wars in the past. Several figures are directly related to the pleading issue. To date, Israel remains in an official state of conflict with both of these neighboring countries, and the atmosphere of hostility has now peaked due to the conflict in Gaza. Most recently, the Israeli military launched a severe missile strike on Syria and intensified airstrikes in southern Syria's state Nusbanan. Syria's Sana news agency reported at the time that Israeli forces in the Golan Heights had launched an unspecified number of missiles toward the southeastern outskirts of Syria's capital, Damascus. Sources confirmed that Syria's air defense systems had shot down a number of the enemy's missiles. Yet the missile strike still resulted in one soldier being injured and some material damage. Meanwhile, the Syria-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, located in the UK, reported that the targets of those airstrikes were 2 Syrian military sites in the Kalamun Mountains southeast of Damascus. According to this organization, this was the second airstrike carried out by the Israeli military on Syrian territory in 2024. Beyond the Syrian front, the Israeli military conducted at least 4 airstrikes on 4 locations in southern Lebanon. At that time, the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, stated that the targets were military structures and several observation posts of the Hezbollah movement. These airstrikes were in response to an increased rocket fire from Hezbollah from southern Lebanon into northern Israel. Meanwhile, the Lebanon-Israel border region has seen increased tensions since October 8, 2013, after the Hezbollah group in Lebanon fired dozens of rockets toward Israel in support of the attack on March 17. Lebanon News reported that the conflict between Israel and the Hezbollah movement in southern Lebanon has indirectly caused $350,000 in damage. According to Lebanon News, the damage resulted from homes and infrastructure being partially or completely destroyed, alongside approximately 10,000 square meters of agricultural land and forests being burnt. The capital, Damascus. Syria also confirmed that several areas around Damascus suffered heavy attacks from Israel. The Syrian Ministry of Defense reported that military targets were hit and damages were documented, despite Syria's air defenses intercepting some missiles. Sana's coverage indicated that the assault resulted in damages, with Syria's air defense downing several of the adversary's missiles. A security source informed the media that one of the Israeli attacked targets was a military base jointly used by Syrian forces and Hezbollah. Israeli security sources disclosed that the Syrian military had transferred weapons to Hezbollah for use in their fight against Israel. In a recent strike days prior, Hezbollah's positions around Damascus were also targeted. Earlier, Syrian Foreign Minister Faisal Mekdad stated that despite the ongoing Middle East crisis, Damascus was fully prepared to defend its territory against a potential military conflict with Israel. Mekdad made these remarks at a meeting with Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian in Damascus, where they discussed supporting Palestinians in the conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Mekdad mentioned that Syria has opposed Israel since the outset of the comprehensive conflict in 1948, involving several Arab countries and Israel. He stressed Syria's participation in conflicts against Israel's occupation and readiness for battle, noting Syria's decision on the timing and manner of the conflict. He underscored the significance of the Golan Heights, a southwestern part of Syria controlled by Israel since 1967, asserting that reclaiming the Golan Heights from Israel remains a top priority, and Syria is prepared to pay the price for this goal. Following Hamas's attack on southern Israel, Israel has stepped up its attacks on Iran-supported militia targets in Syria and on Syrian military air defense systems. Reuters reported that at least 6 members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, have been killed in suspected Israeli attacks on Syria since December 2023. The IRGC has scaled back the deployment of high-ranking officers in Syria due to a series of Israeli strikes, increasingly relying on allied militia forces to sustain its influence in Syria.